My name is Ben Tice, owner and director of Skol Marketing. We've now been around for 10 years. And prior to that, me and my business partner used to work at Google. So really our expertise is helping people establish their online presence through web development and kind of account setup, but then really taking it a step further with enhancing your online presence ongoing with SEO, SEM, social media, and all of that kind of fun stuff. But today we're going to be specifically talking about introduction to social advertising, advertising on social media and the different types of platforms that are out there. Understanding the different advertising models that are available to us on social media to enhance our brand. So what we're going to be talking about today is obviously social media advertising, but really getting into a little bit of how are the ads different on each platform? Because again, we can run ads on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on, again, a multitude of different types of platforms out there, but they are going to be kind of a little bit different. And it's kind of understanding that so we can kind of implement that effectively. We're also going to be looking at how to actually create these ads. We're going to take you kind of through an exercise of kind of, again, going through some of the things to look at when we actually are creating these different types of ads for the different types of platforms. And throughout the entire presentation, we'll be talking about different tips, different strategies that are applicable to kind of different platforms or all the platforms with general strategies as well. The idea is hopefully you come out of this with a little bit better understanding of what's available to you when it comes to social advertising and some of the basics and some of the pillars that you'll be, again, not only experiencing, but also implementing if you go into kind of social advertising and start running campaigns for your business. So the 5 platforms that we're really going to talk about here today is going to be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. I will say though, we're going to spend predominantly the most of our time though on Facebook. And the reason for that is Facebook allows for the broadest array of different types of ads that we can do. It's the #1 social media platform out there. And really, if you can kind of understand kind of Facebook, it's usually the most applicable to all businesses. Some of you guys may not be on Facebook, some of it may not be applicable, but for the general population and the majority of us, that's most likely where you're doing some business right now on social media. Or like I said, it's the most popular social media platform and it offers the most array of options that if we can kind of, again, get our feet wet with Facebook, you'll see a lot of similarities to the other kind of platforms. By the end of, again, when we get through Pinterest, you'll have heard me say a lot of the same things the same times because it's a lot of the same philosophy. It's just implemented a little bit different for each kind of platform. So that's what we're going to really kind of start here today is really focusing on Facebook and then kind of seeing that ripple effect to Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest for whichever platform you decide to kind of go on and implement for your business. Okay, so starting out just kind of with Facebook ads or kind of social ads a little bit kind of in general. One thing I like to kind of discuss is the difference here between advertising on Google and advertising on social media. I get asked this question a lot, and really here is the philosophical difference between running ads on any type of social media account or running ads on Google. It's really kind of the mindset of the user. So when you're advertising on Google, that's really kind of usually our pay-per-click type of model. That means that someone's actively searching for a problem or a solution or a product or service that you can essentially solve for them. So they're in the mindset of actively searching for a solution to their search. And so they're kind of in the mindset to be able to kind of figure something out. They may be, in the mindset to buy, but they're at least in the mindset to kind of explore, and you're targeting something that's targeting somebody that's actively searching for that. Social media is a little bit different. Now we're going to go out, we're not going after them necessarily from an action, whereas like Google, we're going after them from an actionary standpoint where someone's searching for us. From social media, it's more of a philosophical difference in that we're actually targeting somebody that, again, that we think would be interested in these products or services from who they are or their behavior. So it's a little bit different, but we're also then having to kind of convince them to get off of that platform because most likely they're doing something else. They're not in the mindset necessarily when they're on Facebook, when they're on Twitter, when they're on Instagram, to be able to be like, ooh, yeah, I'm looking for something. Let me kind of click to buy that to explore more. So again, both of them work very well. I want to make sure that that's kind of understood is both of them, as long as they're set up correctly, managed correctly, and connected to the business correctly, both of them work really well. But, again, a lot of times people think that they're probably more similar than they really are, because really, again, at the philosophical difference here is Google is going after someone that's in the mindset actively searching for something that you can solve. Social media is we're going after somebody that we think would be interested in our products and services. And from a behavioral and from a interest kind of standpoint, that's how we're kind of targeting them. So it's really kind of nice though as marketers, because now we can really kind of, again, target people from both ends. We have a lot of clients and, again, it's super successful, having, running Google ads for those people that are actively looking for you, and then running social media ads for people that you think would be interested in you, but maybe aren't actively searching for you as well. Another thing to make sure that we're just all on the same page here is you need to make sure that what we're talking about here are all business pages. So for all the platforms that we're kind of talking about here is you need to make sure, because there are different types of accounts. You'll see, again, usually the three big ones that you're going to be able to kind of see out there are going to be personal pages, professional/business pages, or creator pages. And so they'll kind of explain what the difference is. You can also kind of switch between them if you ever need to. Again, like, so if you find that you're backed into a corner on Twitter or Instagram or something like that, and you're like, okay, I can't do the ads that I want, you can always kind of switch your account and it will kind of show you the pros and cons or who those accounts are meant for. I would say the majority of us are going to be kind of in the business/professional page, because we're, at the end of the day, businesses and things like that. If you start to get into some of the other ones, there are some potential like creators, more influencers or celebrities. You can, again, potentially get into some of that depending on how you've structured a business. But I would say the majority of us are going to be under professional and business pages. And it's just important to realize that's where we're doing all the advertising with. The other thing to also really kind of start to realize is no matter what advertising model you're doing, even if it is Google or social media, but even more specifically Facebook to Twitter to Instagram to whatever, is you need to start with a plan. And what I'm talking about here is we talk to a lot of business owners and people that manage business accounts, and we find out a lot of times that they just start pressing the promote or the boost button and just start kind of doing that without ever having any structured plan. So really what I like to kind of say is you want to really kind of identify two things. First is you want to kind of identify your goal or your conversion. Now remember, a conversion is anything that you find of value that a user can do. Now, of course, there's usually going to probably be some that are higher, of value to you than lower value. So for instance, somebody liking your page, yeah, that's probably got some value to you, but probably not quite as much as them maybe clicking on a link that's advertising something and going to your website or signing up for an event or things like that. So again, conversions can be, again, signing up for a demo, signing up for an event, purchasing something, just getting it in front of them, maybe watching a video, liking your page, liking your post. Those are all different types of things that can have value to you. So a lot of times what we tell clients is literally take out a piece of paper or write it on, again, a Google Doc or something, but start to list what you would ideally want to get from ads. Not only from a, again, higher level, which is, okay, hey, I want to get more business. I want to get more people through my door. I want to do that kind of stuff. But then even break it down even further of, okay, well, in order to get more purchases, I, of course, need to get more people to the website. And so start breaking those things down a little bit further for yourself to really, again, get at what you're kind of going after and what you want them to do. The reason that that's important is a lot of these campaigns start with answering that question of what do you want someone to do? What is kind of your goal? And then it kind of starts to flow into the next one is defining your audience. And this really kind of goes to most digital marketing, but even more specifically to, again, social media ads as well, and even Facebook ads here is you want to make sure that you define your audience. And so what we're kind of talking about here is the more specific you can make audiences and different ads catering to them, overall, the more successful you'll be. Now, again, you might have to define your audiences. Maybe it's, again, gender. Maybe it's ages. Maybe it's geographic. If it's, Minnesota compared to Alabama. If it's, St. Paul compared to Hopkins. Again, there's going to be different types of demographics essentially kind of there. Maybe it's under job titles. However you kind of define your audiences, you most likely will be able to look at that list and realize that the way you speak to one probably is a little bit different than the way you speak to another. Like for instance, with us at Skol Marketing, a really big one that really defines us is, are we working with a B2B client, a business to business client, or are we working with a B2C client, a business to consumer? The way we talk to them and the way that we formulate potentially their marketing plans, their website and stuff like that is very different. Well, that's a huge thing for us. So like that's a very defining mark for our audience when we segment those out. And that's super important when we start to develop ads here at Skol Marketing for ourselves, is that's one of those kind of determining kind of points. So that's one of those things to kind of look at to be able to kind of see. And so what you want to do is you want to have all of your conversions listed there, and you want to have all of your audiences. The idea is that we can start kind of matching them together and getting different variables for different types of ads to run. Now, I know that might sound a little overwhelming, but again, it goes back to the more specific you can be, the more specific you can control your budget and who's seeing this, but a lot of times it will be also more beneficial to you to be able to kind of speak to them just from a marketing standpoint. It also a lot of times can, can help you avoid ad fatigue. Ad fatigue is one of those things that we see this a lot of times. If you don't take time to define your audience, if you don't take time to set up your different ads with kind of conversions, the idea is not to have so many overlapping type of categories. What we see like a lot of times when people start doing ads, they just kind of blast it or shotgun it out there. Well, what can start to happen is even if you do several different types, if we don't hone in on the audience well enough, the same person can be seeing, you can be coming at somebody, 2, 3, 4 different ways. And what you end up actually doing is essentially pushing that person away or making them frustrated at seeing your ad over and over and over again. I've even personally had this, happen. Most likely you've probably seen, if you've opened Facebook, you've most likely seen maybe potentially an ad over and over and over again. And so it's kind of, counterintuitive, because us as the marketer, us as the company are paying for that ad to essentially be shown. And we're essentially paying to upset the consumer, to have a negative connotation about our business. So again, to help you avoid ad fatigue. Now, again, I will say Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they don't want you to experience ad fatigue. So they will have some systems developed inside of there, but you do want to make sure that you are, doing everything you can, and having a list of conversions and having a list of, kind of audience or segmenting your audience out can be helpful as well. Okay, so looking at specifically Facebook is one thing I like to kind of just make sure that we kind of get out of the way, is the difference between promoting versus boosting. Because I get this question a lot, or a lot of times people are like, well, Ben, yeah, I clicked the little boost button next to my, my post, and I've got that kind of running. Isn't that the same thing as running ads? And while yes, technically boosting is a type of Facebook ad, it's not as in-depth or intricate as you can make it, or more so than you probably even want to be doing. Meaning that boosting is really nice. Really what the difference is here is that boosting is essentially taking an already public post and then just amplifying to a certain audience. Promoting is doing very specific different types of ads that are only seen to certain demographics. So again, boosting can work in certain situations because you're taking an already public post and just amplifying it. But more often than not, if you're going to be doing sophisticated marketing campaigns, ongoing, and looking at doing, again, very detailed marketing to different segments, you most likely want to do the promote, because that's going to allow you to do, again, more, things, different types of ads, more detailed, all of those types of, again, avenues that we're kind of looking at. So one thing is that you'll kind of see here is first is kind of choosing a goal or choosing kind of an ad type. And, Facebook, keeps kind of changing this and tries to simplify it, gives you some other ones. And so you might actually see this screenshot change over time. Again, it can literally sometimes change on a weekly or monthly basis as Facebook goes through things. But the idea here is that you want to kind of choose a goal. So, do you want automated ads? Do you want to kind of control the ad type yourself? Do you just want to boost existing content? The big difference here is kind of the control that you want. When you do automated ads, of course, you're going to be using artificial intelligence within kind of Facebook to help you kind of build your ads out. This can be beneficial if you're just starting and you don't maybe know where to kind of go or how to kind of be able to do this. But as you start to get more sophisticated and a little bit, again, more comfortable with it, most likely you're going to want to choose to where you actually control the ad. The benefit of using kind of the automated or the AI type of ads is, again, it's a lot easier because you're trusting and you don't get as much control, but you're putting in information and Facebook is kind of helping you along the way. Now, the only con with that, then again, is you don't get to control that quite as much. And there might be some things that you want to change or want to control that you don't get, that you're not able to. So that's what I'm saying is starting out, it's totally fine. We see a lot of people do that. It's better to run those than nothing at all, or you got to start someplace. You got to crawl before you jog, before you run. And so the idea though, is as you start to go forward though, you're going to most likely want to actually do some of these ads yourself and kind of have those, be you're running so you can fully control that. So there's also different ad formats. So there are desktop news feeds, there are mobile news feeds, right desktop. You can do, again, we can advertise within Facebook Messenger. We can advertise within Instagram from Facebook. We can just do the news feed. So you kind of have to figure out what, again, who your audience is and what you're trying to kind of accomplish or what you're trying to essentially, again, advertise. So because again, advertising within messages, within stories may work for some things, but other ones it may not kind of work for as well. Usually the higher kind of conversion that you want, the less places you kind of want to place it. So what I'm talking about there is if you want someone to purchase something, it's really good, for instance, to put that in someone's newsfeed and most likely kind of start to corral that just to be Facebook and not having that potentially be in in Messenger or in stories or on Instagram. Because again, we can start to have ads that specifically cater or talk to those types of people that might be in there. Something less, for instance, maybe if it's just signing up for a newsletter, watching a video, liking your page, a little bit less kind of conversion value. Those can be a little bit more broad. So that would be something potentially where you would maybe want to say, okay, yeah, we can put that in Messenger, we can put that in Marketplace, we can put that into those other kind of areas. The nice thing though is that you get to kind of control that. Very similar that if you've run ads on Google, they do very similar things there with, do you want to just run it on google.com? Do you want to, or do you want to run it on the Google network plus their partner sites and things like that? So here's the thing though, is a lot of times you will see these platforms say, hey, it's recommended that you, again, that you push this out to all platforms. I always just caution people just with always taking that is because a lot of times what's happening is your budget will be done a lot faster and it may not be the highest ROI. It's definitely recommended on Facebook or Instagram or Google's perspective because they can obviously utilize your budget and they are trying to help you get as much exposure there. But again, it goes back into this isn't all about just exposure. This is about getting those conversions. So depending on what your conversion is and kind of going through these exercises, going through the motions of actually creating these ads, the higher conversion, the more restrictive you want to be. The lower kind of conversion value, the more broad you can also be as well. So when we look to actually set up, like for instance, a Facebook ad, and you'll see a lot of these different kind of components if you're setting something up on Instagram, if you're setting something up on Twitter or LinkedIn, they might have different kind of, again, options. But for instance, you're going to see, again, you're going to be able to upload your create ad, your collateral. We're going to see kind of demographics, of course, budgets and things like that. But we'll just use this as an example with Facebook right now. So the first is kind of creating the ad, kind of the message or the image or the video. Again, you might have seen in the previous slide, you can also do, there's different variations. You can do, carousel, you can do different products. There's different types of ads that you can do, but the idea is that we're submitting some type of collateral. Most often than not, most people usually have one solid picture. Now you might, again, you might put images, or excuse me, you might put lettering over your images and stuff like that. You might have a custom photo. Or for instance, you might just have, again, a picture that you have that you've used in other advertising, whatever it may be. Most people are going to use an image ad, but this also might be an opportunity to kind of test both of them out, to kind of see what works with your demographic, what works with your different marketing segments, what works with your different kind of conversions. That's the thing with Facebook, especially since it's much more behavioral than even kind of, again, Google being a little bit more kind of direct and technical and them looking at us, is there's a lot more variables there. And we need, because we're dealing a lot of times with interest, behavior, human behavior, is that, again, you kind of have to test some things out and see what works for you. There's obviously some guidelines here, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to kind of see what works for you and maybe do A/B testing, which is essentially just having different versions. Like for example, having an image ad or a video ad. that's something that you're essentially saying going after very similar people or the same. You're having the same conversion, but you're doing two different versions there. And so we might be able to kind of see what works better with people. Also, demographics. This is really important as well. We're going to essentially tell, in this case, Facebook, what demographics from a gender, age, and location. That's kind of the initial three that we essentially get to say. So we get to go in there and we can target males, females, or all. We also, with age, you can go all the way down to 13 to 65 plus. Those are kind of the ranges. So what that means is you could technically run an ad that targets 18 to 22-year-olds, 50 to 63-year-olds. Again, like 65 plus is all kind of done together. You can't break that out any further. But again, you can do 13 to 65 and anything in between, all the way down to even just 1 year if you did decide to do that. And then also location. So very similar to how, again, if you can search for zip codes for, again, usually it's cities or states that you're able to kind of target. You can also drop a pin and then kind of put a radius kind of around it. The biggest radius you can go is 50 miles, 50, and the smallest radius you can go is 1 mile. So for instance, maybe an area, like we've worked with certain, again, companies that know like maybe an association or know a certain park or know a certain area of kind of a city. And again, you can go all the way down to essentially a mile radius and be able to kind of target that. So again, you can really kind of control this to be able to kind of see that. When it comes to demographics, again, like any of these demographics you hit stack on top of each other. So what I mean by that is it's an and system. So if you pick males 20 to 25 and located in Minneapolis, all three of those things have to be hit for, again, to match up with someone to be able to kind of target that. So those are, again, of course, very basic kind of demographics. And this is where really kind of Facebook and social media really kind of take it to the next level. And this is how and why people kind of, again, want to, again, go with them is because of the interest. Now, this is where we've kind of alluded to. This is the behavioral aspect of targeting on social media. So not only do we get to, gender, age, and location, those things are pretty simple. You pretty much put that information in when you start your profile. But the other one is essentially calculated via your avatar and your behavior. What that means is that, every time that you log onto Facebook, it's free. But what, again, the reason that Facebook is free is every time that you comment on something, what you comment about, if you share something, if you like something, the pages that you like and engage with, essentially all of that is tracked. And all of that is essentially, again, aggregated into, again, to making your avatar. It's really just your profile of all of your behavior. So for instance, like mine, again, for Ben Tice is going to know that I, again, like, pugs and animals. I like the Vikings. I, again, do a lot of stuff with Special Olympics. I, again, do a lot of stuff with business. All of that stuff that I talk about and engage with, all of those things are behavioral aspects. So if someone's looking for someone like me that checks, maybe some of those boxes, all of those boxes, they're able to kind of do that because Facebook has created kind of a marketing avatar for us. Kind of creepy from a personal standpoint, great from a marketing standpoint. So interest here is where we get to essentially tell people, tell Facebook the people we want to target from a behavioral standpoint. Both the pros and the cons, meaning that, so we can go in there is we can say, okay, I want to target, again, let's pick, we want to target females aged 20 to 40 that are located in, again, the state of Minnesota. Then from an interest standpoint, I want to target them that, again, people that love the theater, love, again, kind of entertainment and pop culture. And I can kind of do that. I might also say, I don't want to target people that, again, like also like sports. Maybe I want to get rid of, again, the people kind of in sports. So again, you can kind of play around with the people that you do want to target, as well as also say that the people that you don't want to target as well. Another example is maybe you're going after, again, people that like dogs, but maybe for some reason you don't want them to like, maybe if, again, a certain breed of dog. You could then put that as a negative as well. So the idea here is that we get to mix demographics and interests, and we get to go after the kind of these people to say, hey, we think you would be interested in our product or service. Essentially, we can, we want you to do this, this, or this, and this is why. And of course, we have the images, we have our call to action, all of that kind of fun stuff. Then we get into kind of the budget and duration. That's pretty kind of cut and dry. So, again, like you'll see here is that a lot of times when you promote, a lot of times you'll see a daily budget. When you boost, you'll see kind of a total budget. So this example just right here was a simple boost, but you'll see a lot of these same kind of parameters. It's just understanding, just to be cognizant of that. You get to pick your duration. It's a minimum of $1 per day for anything that you do. So just know that if you're doing promoting, you're doing boosting, anything like that, you have to at least spend $1 per day. But the idea is that you get to control that. Also, what's kind of cool about this, and you can kind of see this as an example here, is once you fill in your demographics, once you fill in your interest, which is kind of like your audience or your audience details, if you're comparing that to the right there, is that you'll be able to kind of see what Facebook is essentially projecting out. So you'll see that in this case, that if we ran this for 7 days and we had a total budget of $35, it's saying that it's going to estimate that we'll be able to reach 144 to 417 people reached per day. So this doesn't mean that they're all going to engage with our, again, our ad or anything, but on average, we're most likely going to be in that range, and it's going to be seen by the people that we, again, targeted on a daily basis. And so, of course, you can kind of, again, do whatever budget you want and kind of look at those different types of projections. And of course, you can also look at, as you start to run ads, your past results and things like that to kind of help you gauge what's going to work and potentially what won't. One thing to also know about is there is one big ad restriction, and there are now restricted industries. So, again, if you are in one of these, unfortunately, it doesn't mean you can't run ads. It just means that they are going to be kind of hindered or, again, kind of held back a little bit. So if you're in the credit or credit card and stuff like that industries, if you're in the employment industry, housing, social issues, elections, or politics, those industries are going to be kind of limited. The reason for this is that a lot of these industries have almost, saturated and flooded the market. And a lot of, again, user feedback to Facebook has been, again, not only does Facebook want to protect these, again, these individuals with some of the stuff that might be out there pertaining to these, but also just to make sure that we're not overwhelming people with the same type of ads from different types of people as well. So again, if you're not in one of those industries, you don't really have to kind of worry about it. But if you are, just know that your ads are going to be kind of restricted a little bit, and that might affect some of your results. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try it, because again, we've worked with people in those industries and it's still a benefit. It's just potentially not quite as much of maybe an industry that's not restricted running ads as well. Another big thing here, and you can actually see, I was going to quickly go back here at the bottom of this, again, of this page, you'll actually see, well, one is placements. We kind of talked about, remember, you get to kind of pick where you want to place them. So Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, but also below that, that's not pictured here, it's also going to ask you if you want to connect your pixel and be able to track this much more. The answer to that absolutely should be yes. And you want to make sure that if you are going to run any type of Facebook ads, if that's even boosting, promoting, simple to complex ads, you want to make sure that the now called meta pixel, or before Facebook pixel, but essentially the Facebook/meta pixel is installed on your site and configured correctly. They'll walk you through it and be able to kind of do step by step, or if you do need help, the beauty of it is very similar to like Google Analytics, where it only needs to be done once, it just needs to be done correctly. What it does then is this pixel then is pretty powerful. And, again, what it does then is it starts to track all of these detailed conversions and all of the user data once people are kind of essentially engaging with your ad. So it's going to be able to kind of track purchases, signups, clicks, etc. The beauty of this, though, is really where this really gets fun as a marketer, is if you have your pixel on here, essentially you can, again, you get a couple different things here. One is you, of course, get very detailed information. Now, some of this, I will say, has been, again, cut back a little bit because of the iOS 14 update, which essentially allows people to kind of opt out. But still, this is much more detailed than you'll get on, most other types of advertising platforms. But the beauty of this is you can almost think of this as a smart pixel. And there's some AI, artificial intelligence, in these pixels. And what they're doing is they're learning. They're learning the different types of people that are going to your site. they're picking up, even though you're targeting certain demographics and certain interests or audiences, there's still obviously, that might be hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And of course, there's going to be certain intricacies or things within there that might be of benefit as well. So what this does is this now kind of learns about them, and then it now allows you to advertise a separate type of aspect. Once you've had your pixel running, again, for a while there, and you've run enough ads, Facebook will now give you an option to essentially target, again, kind of custom audiences. Essentially what you can say and what Facebook will recommend is saying, hey, we've got enough data now on these pixels. Do you want us just to go after people that have converted already on your site, as well as people that look just like them? We kind of call them lookalike audiences. What that means is if they've seen that these 120 people have done what you essentially kind of wanted them to do on the site, or they kind of click through, they look to see all the similarities between them and go, okay, let's use those 120 people and let's find another, again, 500 people just like them. So this is, again, really where you can use technology and AI to your benefit, is by just installing that pixel, starting to run ads, and then you'll be able to kind of get those options for future ads that you're kind of running. If we actually go back here, you can kind of see an example of this, is that you can see detailed targeting expansion. That's kind of a part of this, is that it's not exactly using kind of the pixel, but it's that same type of concept that we're essentially saying, okay, we want to target these people, but also be on the lookout to people that you think would also be interested that might be able to expand it. Very similar to the pixel here, having a lookalike audience. So 100%, this is something you absolutely need to make sure that you get installed. Again, if you're having issues, the beauty of it is just install it once, get help from somebody to kind of install that once, and then you're kind of set to go, and then start running your ads and look for that option to appear after you've run several ads. There's not an exact science to the amount of ads you need to run or anything like that. So unfortunately, you just got to kind of start running them, but it does happen pretty quickly, especially if you're just running, a few different ads and you have a sufficient amount of ad budget above that dollar minimum that they kind of require. So, where we can also kind of see all of this and where all of this is kind of aggregated is the Facebook Ads Manager or the Business Manager, again, kind of behind the scenes. What this allows you to do is you're able to manage all of your ad campaigns. And you can also download this on your phone via an app. That's how I honestly, I like to kind of manage a lot of our stuff on our phone, to be able to kind of see and just kind of, check up on status updates and stuff like that. Creating ads and stuff like that, it is a little bit easier on the desktop, but you can also do that on your mobile device as well by downloading the Facebook Ads Manager app. And so what you're able to do is you're able to view the ad results, see the performances down to some of those things that we're able to kind of, track, different purchases, cost per conversion. So we're able to kind of see, okay, if I'm selling an item that's $50 and, again, I spent X amount and we got X amount of conversions, and we do the math and it's saying, hey, your cost per conversion is $6. That most likely is probably, depending on your profit margins, probably a good number to say that I'm getting a $50 purchase and it's only costing me $6. So those are the types of numbers that we're able to start to calculate by viewing in Facebook Ad Manager, but then using the Facebook/Meta pixel. You can also start to experiment. You can create the new different types of ads here. We can also do, like we kind of talked about, the lookalike campaigns. All of that is essentially, again, managed from here. And so on the bottom right here, you can actually see kind of a breakdown too, which, even takes it a step further. We could see, the different performances, where it's placed, again, is it the news feed? Is it Facebook? Is it Messenger? And we can see the difference there, but we can even break down this, as you can kind of see here, to see, okay, so, a female aged 25 to 34, these are the results that we're kind of seeing. A male aged, 45 to 54, these are the examples. You can kind of see that right there. And we can then also start to tweak our ads. If we're getting a much better result, maybe either via, again, gender, age, or some type of, again, kind of one of those demographics, we could kind of change that if we're getting a better ROI or return on investment. So that's ultimately what we're able to kind of see with the Facebook Ads Manager. And this is something you're going to want to pay attention to as you start to get into more and more different types of social ads, because this is where we're going to be able to kind of not only help set up, but really more importantly, this is going to help you manage them. And, any type of ad shouldn't just be, again, set it up, set a budget and let it run and never check on it. The whole, again, successful ad campaigns are being able to kind of set those up and check in on them, maybe on a daily, daily, weekly basis, depending on what you're kind of doing. The idea though is that you're, again, monitoring, that you're looking at this and making those modifications to hopefully get, again, a better and better ROI. So one kind of, tip or strategy, this is pretty much free to do, and you can do this for organic or paid kind of posts or promotions. But a lot of times if you're paying, you're going to usually get more likes at a faster rate. Again, here are two easy ways, again, free of charge, that you can increase followers. The first is inviting friends to like your page. This has become a little bit more cumbersome than it used to be and is a little bit more restrictive, but it still essentially kind of works. And so what you're able to do is you can send a one-time personal invite to all of your connections. Anybody that is an admin of your page can also do this to all of their friends. Now, usually it's about 500 to 1,000 a week is what studies have kind of shown that you can do. But Facebook does, again, monitor that. And sometimes they have daily limits, weekly limits. They're just making sure that people aren't spamming. But the beauty of this, again, is if you have, 4,000 Facebook friends, you can eventually, it might take you a couple weeks, but you can send them a special invite to like your page. This, again, really helps you, of course, you can still post on your personal page to say, hey, can you like my business page? But now we can take it a step further and get more likes at a pretty, again, rapid or easy, rate. Normally what we see is anywhere from a 10 to 20% conversion rate, meaning that if you invited 100 people, you're going to see anywhere from, 10 to 20 likes, again, from that, again, invite going out to those 100 people. Some may be more, some may be less, but that's a great way to kind of do that. And again, any admin of your page can also do this to all of their followers. The really kind of cool one that you can do on an ongoing basis, though, is you can also send individual invites to people that have liked your post or your ad, but aren't following you. So this happens sometimes because the way that social media works as well is, your posts, of course, are, if you're running ads, are specifically targeting a certain person. But even when you do an organic post, when you do a paid post, part of social media is the discoverability factor. And what that means is if you and I are friends on Facebook and I like something, Facebook might show that in your news feed because I liked it and we're connected and we might have some similar interests. And then you might like that post. You may have never actually followed that page or liked that page, but you actually liked that content that they produced. What you're able to do here then is on an ongoing basis is you're able to kind of see who's liking your posts on an individual basis, and you can send them individual invites. This is honestly a fantastic way to really get an extra value out of ads, meaning that, so again, you can run an ad and try to get some conversions. And, again, that's, if it's getting somebody to your website, signing up for an event, the higher level kind of conversion, that's great. But then we can also potentially get some people to like our page, which is maybe a lower conversion, but we're getting that free of charge. And all it took us was to click on that post, see those people that have liked us. And you can see a screenshot here in the bottom, again, kind of left here of an example of what that would look like. You can see people that have already liked it. You can see people that have been invited. And then if it's, again, kind of like the black text like that, to be like, great, now I can invite Brian and Alice and they'll get a personalized invite from me. Now, again, you can only invite everybody once. So if they ended up not accepting your invite and liking more content, it is kind of what it is. But this is a great way to start to increase your followers free of charge. Okay, now shifting to again, Instagram. And again, we're going to see is we're going to be talking about a lot of the same stuff. It's just a little bit of them are going to be just little intricacies. So Instagram is probably going to be the closest to Facebook because, again, Facebook actually owns Instagram. So when you're running ads on Facebook, you can actually click and some of them will run on Instagram. That's okay for some campaigns, but more often than not, as we kind of talked about at the beginning, the more specific and the more effort you put into this is usually the better your ads are going to run. So if you want to run Instagram ads, I recommend, again, actually setting them up on Instagram and not just kind of clicking the button that kind of blasts them out there, kind of the easy way out. So, here is, we want to make sure that we switch to a business profile like we kind of talked about at the beginning, but very similar to what we experienced with Facebook. We're going to select a call to action. Do we want them to buy now, to, again, like our page, all of those different types of things. We're going to set our audience, again, we're going to set our location, our age, the people who match, certain audiences and stuff like that. Then we're going to select our budget and our duration, and we're going to run our ads. One thing that you'll also see, and you can see this in the upper right-hand corner here, and you'll actually notice this on Facebook and Instagram, when you're actually developing ads and you're trying to pick your audience definition is what they call it, is they have a little scale there. They have, again, it's red, meaning that it's too specific in their opinion, a kind of yellow, which means it's too broad, or kind of green, which means, okay, that's suggested. Just to know that that's kind of just a guide. You technically can run ads either in the red or the yellow, but of course, you most likely are going to want to try to get that into the green by modifying your audience. If it's too specific, maybe broadening it out. If it's too broad, maybe, of course, being a little bit more kind of specific there. But that is kind of a tool that both Facebook and Instagram have that you definitely want to pay attention to and see if that can help you refine your audience to be able to kind of, go after the specific people as best you can. LinkedIn ads. Now, this one is, again, this does use a lot of the same kind of, terminology and methodology we kind of talked about. But, with LinkedIn, when it comes to your demographic, this is more or less going to be a lot of the B2B type of platforms. If your business is B2B or you're going after very high-end kind of professional or a professional industry, LinkedIn is, again, usually one of the places that we kind of look at. And so because within, again, LinkedIn, whereas, we kind of talked about on Facebook, you can go after job positions and likes and dislikes and stuff like that. On LinkedIn, what's really kind of nice about it is you can really determine who you're going after from a business perspective. So we can pick different industries that people are in. We can pick the size of the company that people work for. We can pick their titles. All of these different types of, again, kind of demographics or audience kind of selection that is much more business specific instead of much more personal specific. So, and again, if you're not going after business professionals or business to business, then maybe we wouldn't necessarily use LinkedIn, but it's important to kind of know kind of the difference. Very similar, you can kind of see the different types of ads that you'll see on LinkedIn. We can do sponsored content, which is, boosting a post. They just call it sponsored content. We can do text and image ads, which is promoting a post, or doing a promotion on Facebook, very similar there. But there are a couple different types of ones you can also do on LinkedIn. One of them is called sponsored in-mail. If you actually want to send direct messages to certain people that fit a certain demographic, you can actually send them direct messages via this advertising opportunity on LinkedIn. So you can target people very similar the same way. You can type up a message and have that kind of sent out. Position targeting. That's really talking about if you're looking to hire someone or have kind of jobs, you can actually, again, do those, you can do those also on Facebook, but this will just kind of target people a little bit different way, more on their kind of business acumen and, again, business kind of profile and kind of what makes them a business professional and what they're looking for from that perspective. And then last but not least is LinkedIn also just even has a premium, membership or a profile. This would be like you signing up for LinkedIn Premium. Technically, that's considered advertising because what you get is you get sponsored in-mail credits there. You get to see certain things that people are looking at. So normally, if you're in the HR or sales kind of industries, LinkedIn Premium can be there. I just mentioned it because technically it would be considered a type of advertising from there. Also, we have, again, the pixel. So again, every platform that you're on, you're going to have to kind of install that pixel. So when we look at the LinkedIn, again, pixel is that one has to be individually installed apart from the Meta, pixel. One quick note too is Metapixel will take care of Facebook and Instagram because they are owned by the same company. All the other platforms here, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, all of them are going to require their own pixel that you're going to have to install. Twitter ads, again, very similar here. We need to make sure that we have a professional account. Again, what's our goal? You can even see they're starting to use that terminology here. Okay, do we want to increase engagement? Do we want to grow our followers? Do we want more link clicks on our tweet that we're doing? We can start to promote our brand. Do we want to, again, get more followers, more awareness, more website visits, promoting your, again, do you want to promote your videos potentially? You want to drive kind of conversions? All the same terminology that we've been kind of doing, it's just maybe done a little bit different, or they're using a little bit different pictures, icons, different terminology, but it's really the same principles. That's again why when we start with Facebook, it's really the same thing over and over and over again. They're just done a little bit different kind of from there. And at the end of the day, Twitter also has their own pixel as well. So, it's looking at these different types of models. Normally, when someone comes to me and says, well, Ben, which platform should I be on to advertise? Again, you can definitely do some A/B testing to see what works. B is we also have done we also have a presentation out there that kind of breaks down some of the different general demographics of Twitter compared to Facebook, compared to Instagram. I encourage you to kind of at least get a base understanding of that, because everybody, there's at least a representative of everybody, every demographic, if that's age, if that's gender, if that's tech savviness to newbie, all of that, they're on every platform. But it's just the majority of people that are on there and how you kind of connect with them. That's ultimately what kind of becomes a little bit different. And that's why there's so many social media accounts, out there, is because they cater usually to a certain type of demographic. So again, like I would say, make sure that you understand a little bit of those. Encourage you to check out our other presentation. Otherwise, you can find some of this information online, but have a little base knowledge of those platforms. And really at the basis of it, if you're still kind of stuck, pick the platform that you use the most and that you want to grow the most and you have the most followers on. That most likely is probably a hint to you that that platform's working for you and connecting with your demographic. And then last but not least, before we open it up here for questions, is going to be Pinterest ads. Again, demographic here, making sure that it kind of fits those demographics of Pinterest users. This one is a little bit, again, more simplistic than most, is we're kind of selecting a pin and then we're kind of promoting it. Where, again, it looks like an organic pin, or, again, what Pinterest gonna just, that's what they call a post. Gonna select our demographics and bam, then we can start to do that. Promote, again, also within pins, you can also tag products, which becomes really kind of beneficial as well. So that's something that can be, again, kind of done and kind of a benefit as well, from there. But really, we're, again, running promotions, we're running boosting ads, we're taking content that we've already posted and amplifying it to a certain demographic. This is, you're just going to see it over and over and over again, and it's just going to be different types of platforms. So with that said, hopefully that kind of takes you through a little bit of just kind of an introduction to social media advertising, understanding kind of that philosophical difference between Google and advertising on social media. Also understanding that, while a lot of these platforms have a lot of the same terminology and pillars, they are a little bit different in how we implement them, as well as how, who, or I should say more or less who, they're essentially mainly targeting. Yes, you still may find a baby boomer that's on, again, of course, Pinterest, again, and Instagram and even Snapchat or TikTok, but that's not really their main demographic. Facebook, for instance, main demographic is baby boomers, again, and where we're kind of moving towards with that. So like, it's kind of understanding some of those things to understand who we're kind of going after as well. And some of those strategy types, again, getting those increased followers kind of on Facebook, understanding, taking that exercise at the beginning and writing out our different, marketing segments, our different conversions, all of those types of things are super important and super critical. So I hope you guys can take away something from this as you guys start to go into, social advertising. I will be honest, it gets much more, again, there's much more than just this, but this is to kind of start to get your feet wet to hopefully get you kind of going into that, so you can move into step 2, step 3. There's a lot of kind of cool tools within social ads. I will say they are changing just as fast as a lot of the other digital marketing platforms like analytics or even SEO strategies and stuff like that. And it can be frustrating keeping up with them. But I do encourage you to kind of stay connected with us, because that's ultimately what we do, is we look to kind of make sure that we can kind of keep up to date on those and educate you guys. So with that said, I do want to open it up to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, so I do have a question here that says, Ben, what budget should we be looking at when we're starting to do social ads? So this is a little, again, it's a little tricky to kind of answer that without knowing, again, who your demographic or audience is, to also look at, again, what conversion you're trying to kind of do. But on a very, very basic one, I would say a healthy, again, budget to start out with, at least, even if you're just doing some basic boosting, could even be something as $200 to $500 per month. Now, again, you could scale that somewhat back. What's kind of nice is you have a little bit more flexibility with your budget on social media than you do Google. Again, if you're running Google ads, I tell people you got to at least have a bare minimum of 500, and you can't really go below that. Social media, you could even do it per event or per post or per ad. So if maybe you only have $100 for this one, you can kind of get away with that. It really goes back into using those, those projections, and everybody does those projections. So I know I showed you the example with Facebook, but Twitter will project it out, Instagram will project it out, all of those, and kind of then also starting to track some of your conversion rates from there to see what's going to be best. We have another question here that says, is it more effective to advertise, let's say $1 a day for a month or $5 a day for a week? That's kind of a great question. Again, it does go back to what you're kind of advertising. And so if you have an event or something that's way long, again, out there, I would say, again, trying to get more, doing longer days can actually be a better benefit. And here's why. Is because when you do longer days, you have a better opportunity to reach kind of different people. Because for instance, if you only did, again, there are some people that only log on to Facebook, maybe if it's once a week, if it's once a month. And a lot of times what social media does is they kind of calculate active monthly users. So my point being though, is if you do it sometimes over a longer period of time, you have a better opportunity for them to kind of see your ad instead of just, again, boiling it all into one kind of event, or excuse me, one ad for an event or whatever it may be. Now, again, that might change depending, again, what you're advertising, who you're advertising. If your event is in 2 weeks, well, of course, you want to go balls to the walls a little bit here and be able to kind of get that. So it's going to be dependent, again, on your conversions, on kind of your ongoing market strategy, but hopefully, that at least gives you a little bit of peek and decide something you can look at, because you can have an opportunity to see more new people if we have it over a longer period of time as well. I have another question here that says, how do we decide whether to manage social media ourselves or outsource? Well, so that's really a question that you kind of have to, again, answer yourself, in that, again, is it something that you can, again, handle yourself? Is, again, is what we kind of talked about a precursor, and maybe testing it out, something that you feel comfortable with, that you kind of be able to do that? We do, again, we do these workshops to give back, to be able to try to teach you how to do this yourself, or even if you do hire somebody, that you at least kind of basically know what's kind of going on. We have a full business that this is what we do, and we know that we offer a great value here. But also, there are a lot of people out there that can do some of this stuff themselves, and it's great to be able to kind of educate them so they're doing it the right way. So unfortunately, I can't necessarily give you that right answer because I don't know the circumstances, but that would be a question that you would have to, again, answer. And of course, budget goes into that. If you hire Skol Marketing, you're paying us to do the work and the expertise and the reporting and all that, while you also have your ad budget. I like to say you're paying us to drive the car, but you also have to pay for the gas. But at the other aspect of it, a lot of times we can run more effective ads. So it kind of goes into kind of your conversion rates, your conversion, again, cost per conversion, and ultimately what you're kind of selling. Good rule of thumb is if you have a very, very, again, inexpensive type of product or service, is, again, it's going to get harder to, again, to be able to run ads, again, at a more effective rate. Whereas if you have a higher price point, of course, again, that can make it a little bit easier as well. So some of those dynamics go into it as well. I have another question here. It says, from your experience, which of the social media is best for launching an app for design? It's too many social media platforms to manage at the get-go. Do you use any specific platform to handle your social media uploads? Yeah, so again, it kind of goes a little bit of who your demographic is, but I most likely would, again, it really kind of depends on your demographic, I should say. So usually we look at Facebook first because it's the most kind of broad one, and it's usually one that people are kind of most familiar with. Then I would start to look at, again, Instagram. If it's B2B, look at LinkedIn. You really, if it's a younger crowd and you have the, again, the capacity to look at potentially even TikTok as, again, the fastest growing social media platform out there. So, again, you have to be cognizant of who your demographic is and the platforms out there. But I first would probably start looking at Facebook and Instagram, kind of just to be, if you're going B2C. And then, again, any specific platforms to handle, social media uploads. I think you might be referring to like something like Hootsuite or Buddy Media or Social Sprout or Loomly. All of these platforms, what it allows you to do is to kind of log into their dashboard, connect all of your social media sites that they have integrations with, and you can kind of plan out posts and do stuff like that. That is a really, again, powerful way to kind of get content out there. Now, one thing with, again, those types of platforms is you just have to be careful because of there are so many different things that you can do on social media now. Like, for instance, again, you have your stories on Facebook and Instagram, and, again, you also have, social selling, which you can tag products and you can do certain things like that. You have different aspect ratios. What I'm saying though is you can't always get all of those intricate kind of features if you use one of those platforms. So I think it's good to kind of have those platforms out there to help expedite, some of the posting you might do. But most likely knowing that you might have still want to work somewhat organically in those posts, either for organic posts or even for paid, again, running paid ads in there as well. Awesome. Well, so it looks like that's all the questions we have for today. Again, if we didn't answer your question or you didn't want to ask it, no worries at all. Here's my contact information. I encourage you guys to reach out with any questions you guys may have. That's what we're here for. Also want to say you should check out our workshop schedule at skolmarketing.com/workshops. This is where we get to partner with great organizations like Skol and other local kind of partners here, and we put on these great workshops there. We also record them when we put them on our YouTube channel, where you're able to kind of go and, again, listen or watch those on demand free of charge. You can essentially just find them on our homepage at skolmarketing.com on the top, or you can simply go to YouTube and find those. And the last offer that we also have is, again, we also offer free consultations. These aren't sales pitches. If you want to talk about our services and how we can help you that way, we definitely can have a conversation. But we also realize that what we're talking about here is very classroom style. And I had to say, it depends on this. And if you're running B2B to B2C. So if you have more in-depth kind of questions and you just want to, again, talk up through those or have us review something or look at, do you have your conversion set up correctly? Did you set up your ad correctly? We do that as a free consultation. I encourage you guys to take advantage of that. Again, it's just something that we do to kind of give back because we know sometimes we need even just a little bit more help than some of the classroom style workshops here. So if you're interested in that, please just send us a note and we'll go ahead and get you one of those free consultations set up. Again, if you're interested in talking about our products or services, you can also find more information on skolmarketing.com. And last but not least, I encourage you guys to check out our workshop schedule. So thank you guys again for tuning in. My name's Ben Tice with Skol Marketing. You guys have a great day and Skol.